All right, so you're ready for a movie night, and you want something, a little more thought-provoking than your average popcorn flick.
I got you covered.
You came to the right place, my friend. We are diving deep today into the world of LGBTQ plus cinema on Netflix.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just your typical rom-com roundup. We're talking historical dramas. We're talking edgy thrillers, international stories. There really is something here for everyone.
Absolutely. I think this list is a great example of how much richer and more, I guess, nuanced LGBTQ storytelling has become. We're kind of moving beyond just like representation, and we're really starting to see the full spectrum of what it means to be queer in all its messy, beautiful complexity.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to dig in.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Yeah. First up, we have Your Name Engraved Herein. This one takes us back to 1987 Taiwan. And I imagine, we can all do the thought experiment, right, of what it was like back then. But just imagine, it's 1987, Taiwan, expressing your true self.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you were gay. Came with some very real risks.
Yes, risks.
Yeah. So this is a love story between two teenage boys, Han and Birdie, but just with that added layer, right?
Yes.
Of that societal pressure.
Yeah.
Every stolen glance, every whispered word, it's
heightened.
It's so charged. Yeah.
Well, and you see that the filmmakers use the setting so effectively to really amplify the intensity of how they're feeling, right? Because, 1987 homosexuality, very, very stigmatized in Taiwan. And so for them to, have this relationship, it really does become this act of defiance, even if it's one that they have to keep very much under wraps.
It's amazing how, I don't know, just a specific time and place, right, can make a love story feel both timeless, we've seen this kind of story 1,000 times, but then also so incredibly urgent.
Right, exactly. And I think that that's something, that theme of love in the face of societal barriers, it's something, honestly, that we see throughout history, right? And it's something that we're going to see echoed in another film on this list, but we'll get to that one a little bit later. For now, I kind of want to switch gears, maybe go from the emotional intensity of Your Name Engraved Herein to something a little bit lighter, a little more grounded, And I'm thinking Leon, which is a family drama that throws a kind of fascinating curveball into the mix.
Right, because Leon's family, not exactly your typical on-screen family, right? He's got two dads, which is amazing to see, but then the film's like, okay, cool, let's dive headfirst into, that classic infidelity storyline.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, except in this case, it's one of his fathers who's been unfaithful.
And it's so, I think, interesting how that, we're very used to seeing infidelity stories, obviously, across all genres and mediums. But I think what Leon does that's so clever is it kind of flips the script on it by placing it in the context of a gay couple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like it kind of challenges these more, I guess, traditional narratives that we see so often, and it forces us to kind of confront, I think, the universality of those experiences, like cheating hurts, betrayal stings, and forgiveness is a whole other journey, no matter who you love.
It's like taking a familiar recipe and then being like, okay, but let's add this one ingredient, this one kind of curveball ingredient.
Yes.
And you think you know what you're going to get.
You think you know.
And then it totally changes the flavor.
Exactly. And speaking of unexpected twists, get ready for a dash of holiday cheer, because up next we have Single All the Way, which, brings the rom-com energy, but with that little festive twist.
This one, I'm telling you, it feels like a warm hug on a cold night. You know what I mean? We've got Peter who's dreading his family's annual, so are you seeing anyone? Inquisition. Right, that holiday pressure. And so his solution, convince his best friend Nick to pose as his boyfriend for, the family festivities.
Right, the old classic rom-com setup, right?
Exactly. But what elevates this one, I think, is how it subtly weaves in these pressures that many LGBTQ plus individuals feel, especially, around family during the holidays, that expectation to be coupled up to fit a certain mold, Yeah. And honestly, that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to regardless of sexual orientation.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And then, of course, no rom-com would be complete without a little chaos, so throw in a handsome gym trainer named James, and let's just say Peter's plan to, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
It goes hilariously off script.
The best laid plans.
It's
right?
always.
So it's that perfect blend of heartwarming and hilarious.
Yeah.
Which is, ideal for a cozy movie night in. But if you're in the mood for something, maybe a little more intense, a little darker, Operation Hyacinth is going to have you on the edge of your seat. This is a thriller that throws us into the thick of 1980s Poland.
Ooh.
Which, again, another time and place where being gay could be incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And so the setup here is, picture this, right? String of murders, all targeting gay men. And we have this young policeman who's determined to uncover the truth, even if it means he has to confront some of his own, deeply buried secrets.
You mentioned earlier how, love often faces these societal barriers. And this film really tackles that, but in a very, very different way.
Absolutely, yeah.
A much darker way. And in the 1980s, especially in a place like Poland.
Incredibly challenging.
Incredibly challenging for the LGBTQ plus community.
And I think what's so fascinating about Operation Hyacinth is it seems to draw inspiration from some real life historical events. I mean, even the title itself, Operation Hyacinth, that was a very real and very chilling operation that targeted gay men in Poland during that era. So it adds, I think, another whole layer of weightiness to this film,
Yeah.
It's blurring the lines between fiction and reality in a way.
It makes you think about how these individual stories, even fictional ones, can be these reflections of larger historical truths.
Absolutely. And speaking of stories that span decades, let's go from the kind of chilling atmosphere of 1980s Poland to the sun-drenched shores of 1970s Italy with Nuovo Olimpo. So get ready for an epic love story. I mean, we're talking unfolds over 30 years. So we meet our protagonists. They're young men, full of life, full of passion. But then, life happens, right?
Yeah.
Right. An unexpected separation throws their future into uncertainty. And the big question that hangs over the film is, will their love endure? Or will time and circumstance drive them apart?
It sounds like one of those films that, you watch it and then you just, you think about it for, days afterwards.
Yeah.
That push and pull between destiny and free will,
Yeah.
The enduring power of love. I mean, it's all very, very captivating.
Very much so. But before we get, too swept away in the romance of it all, we do have to shift gears to a film that I think is sure to have you laughing out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Marry My Dead Body.
Okay.
So imagine, if you will, a homophobic policeman. Okay, so we have that. Who suddenly finds himself bound to the spirit of a flamboyantly gay man.
Oh, my God.
Talk about a recipe for hilarious chaos, right? But that's what makes this film so clever, right? It takes this, outrageous premise and it uses it to explore some really important themes, I mean, we're talking, prejudice, acceptance, the absurdity of judging someone based on their sexuality. It's social commentary disguised as this laugh out loud comedy.
I love that. Yeah. It really does. It uses that humor to kind of sneak in those really important messages.
Yeah.
Speaking of challenging norms, the next film on our list, Love, Simon. I mean, this movie really took the world by storm when it came out.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so relatable, right?
That's
this
right.
portrayal of, a gay teenager navigating the ups and downs of coming out and finding love. And
what I loved about Love, Simon was how universal it was. I mean, yes, it's very specifically about a gay teenager's experience, but I think at its core, it's really about those first crushes, right?
Yeah.
The fear of judgment, the longing to be seen and accepted for who you are. I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah.
In some way or another, right?
It captures that so well, that awkward, exhilarating, terrifying time when you figuring out who you are and who you want to be, right?
Yeah.
It's a good reminder too that coming out, it's not a one-time event,
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It's a process.
And that journey unfolds differently for everyone.
Absolutely. And it is a process, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of want to go from a film that celebrates those individual journeys to one that kind of unveils a hidden chapter, I guess you could say, of LGBTQ history. I'm talking about Dance of 41. So this one takes us back to early 2000s Mexico, where a police raid on this private gathering, it exposes this secret society of men. And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Many of them, very prominent figures in society, caught dancing and celebrating. But while they're dressed in women's attire, and this, of course, causes this huge scandal, right? Sends shockwaves through the nation, and it really forces people to confront some deeply ingrained societal norms.
Wow, that's quite the story, especially for like, I mean, we're talking relatively recently, right?
Yeah.
Like the early 2000s. I mean, it makes you think about like the lives we lead behind closed doors and like the price of living authentically in a world that isn't always accepting.
Yeah, and especially, you know, given that this involved individuals from the upper echelons of society, right? I mean, we're talking even the son-in-law of the Mexican president.
Right.
Like it was a huge deal. And I think it just goes to show that, you know, LGBTQ individuals were everywhere, regardless of social standing.
Yeah.
And their stories deserve to be told. Now, kind of shifting gears again to another culturally rich film, Cobalt Blue. This time we're going to India.
Okay.
Where we're going to witness a family grappling with love and desire and acceptance against the backdrop of, you know, these societal expectations.
This one I've heard is visually stunning.
Oh, Cobalt Blue is just gorgeous. I mean, the way that they use color and light and shadow, it's masterful. But even beyond just like the aesthetics of it, it really delves into, I think, the complexities of family dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And the story here is that we have a young gay man and his sister, and they both find themselves falling for the same person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it creates this really interesting, tangled web of emotions, right? And it forces them to confront their own desires, but then also the expectations placed upon them by their family and society at large.
It sounds like it explores those like universal themes, right? Of like love and loss and longing, but through this like uniquely Indian lens.
Exactly, yeah. Which, you know, it's just a good reminder, I think, that even within these like different cultural contexts, human emotions, they really do remain remarkably similar.
Totally.
And then finally, we wrap up our deep dive with Alex Strangelove, which is a film that I have such a soft spot for because I think it perfectly captures that awkward, exhilarating, and often very confusing journey of self-discovery during those formative teenage years, you know. And so we meet Alex, who on the surface seems to have it all figured out, right? He's popular, he's got a great girlfriend, but then, you know, as these things often happen, his world gets flipped upside down when he meets Elliot, who's this charming gay teenager who awakens some feelings within him that he didn't even know existed.
Oh, it's that classic coming of age story of like, you know, you think you have it figured out and then suddenly you're questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. And then finding the courage to actually embrace who you truly are, even if it means like
defying those expectations.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about Alex Strangelove is just how honest it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't shy away from the awkwardness, the confusion, those fumbling first steps of self-discovery. And I think it's a good reminder that it's okay to not have all the answers, you know?
Yeah.
And that, like, growing up is this process, right? It's trial and error. It's stumbling and finding your footing along the way.
I mean, it's crazy, right? Like how these movies, they really do. Like they take you back.
They really do. Yeah,
like
right.
to those years, those feelings.
To being a teenager, right?
Yeah. And all that intensity and all that uncertainty.
Absolutely.
And it's a good reminder, I think, that like no matter like who you are, where you come from, that journey, like that's universal.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's what I love about this list, you know, is that we see this really like wide range of experiences, right? We're talking, you know, everything from first love to like societal prejudice. But ultimately, I think, you know, what these films all remind us of is our shared humanity.
Totally. So for our listeners who are like, okay, I need to watch these movies. Like, this sounds amazing, but I'm a little overwhelmed. Where do I start? Like, any suggestions for like a starting point for like an LGBTQ plus movie marathon?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I always say go with what resonates, right? Like, if you're in the mood for something like feel good, rom-com-y, you know, with a side of holiday cheer, Single All the Way.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot go wrong. If you want a love story that's going to stay with you, you know, long after the credits have rolled, Nuovo Olimpo. And then honestly, if if you're like me and you love your comedy with a little bit of like, social commentary, Marry My Dead Body, you're going to be laughing, but it's also going to like spark some interesting conversations,
It's amazing how these films can do it all, They can entertain us, they can make us think, they can challenge our perspectives, but like at the end of the day, they're telling stories that like celebrate the diversity of human experience.
Exactly. And as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here into the world of LGBTQ plus cinema on Netflix, I'm honestly left feeling really, really optimistic. Like the fact that these stories are being told, they're reaching these wider audiences than ever before. I don't know. I think it's a real testament to the power of representation and just how important it is that these narratives are being shared.
I could not agree more. So to all our listeners out there, check out these fantastic films. This is just, the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole world of incredible LGBTQ plus stories waiting to be discovered. Each one offers, a unique perspective, a chance to connect, and ultimately a reminder that no matter who you are or who you love, your story deserves to be told. Happy watching, everybody.
It's not. Happy watching.